Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, excellencies, I am delighted to welcome you to the Horasis Asia meeting here in Dubai. My special thanks go to DP World for co-hosting this event. The CEO of DP World, Bhaskaran, will talk to us in a minute, welcoming you. The Horasis community of selected leaders from Asia and the world, from business, government and civil society, is gathering for an unparalleled experience to advance solutions to the most critical challenges Asian companies are facing today. We will strive to find the best futures under global uncertainties. And, ladies and gentlemen, we want to create impact. We would like to build bridges to the future. Dubai, ladies and gentlemen, is Asia's new economic hub, connecting Asia with the Middle East, Africa, and Europe. The Horasis Asia meeting will spotlight Dubai's leadership here in Asia, its distinctive role as an innovation, supply chain, and trading center, and its commitment to ESG practices. Against this backdrop, ladies and gentlemen, the Horasis Asia meeting will identify the trends that will shape Asia's economic development and drive it towards a new global growth story. Dubai, ladies and gentlemen, is Asia's and the world's new center of dialogue. The UAE are focusing on sustainable growth and looking to the future with confidence to create impact. Ladies and gentlemen, the world is facing unprecedented crisis on its systems and on its people, via economic imbalances, climate change, and geopolitics. Also, these factors and conflicts interact in seemingly uncontrolled ways. We can build bridges to mitigate global risks. It is my wish, ladies and gentlemen, here at Horasis, we will find ways to build bridges to the future. I wish you an inspiring and rewarding Horasis Asia meeting here in Dubai. Thank you very much. I would now like to call on Mike Bhaskaran, the Global Chief Operating Officer of DP World, our host here in Dubai. Mike, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Frank, and thank you for bringing Horasis to Dubai. And then my distinguished guests and Your Excellencies, we're very excited to host you in Dubai. I think this is an opportunity that we do. Global Freight Summit is an opportunity for us to bring our customers and people who actually sponsor DP World, and how can DP World connect with the rest of the world, and what can customers do for us, and then what can actually, more importantly, DP World do for our customers. So we have definitely an eclectic group of folks come in, and thank you. I think, every one of you guys have come from a different facet in life, and then what you guys do, and you bring like enormous amount of knowledge and wealth and teach us. So thank you for doing that, and thank you, Frank, for putting together this wonderful event. I just want to welcome you to Dubai, and then just want to give you a high-level overview of what the Global Freight Summit is. So as DP World, we really support customers who bring cargo to our ports. So the traders bring cargo to our port, liners bring cargo to the port, and then freight forwarders. So how can we help this ecosystem? So when we have traders, they told us like the number one thing that they need is finance. So we brought together a list of about 50 plus bankers to help them with working capital and then the business processes right now. What kind of capital do they need to go back and support their business in terms of infrastructure investment as well as working capital? And then, our forwarders said we need more business, so we bought the traders who are their customers. So and then our liners said we need more forwarders to get more containers so they can continue to get like more cargo to our ports to support a $40+ billion investment. And then, our liners obviously are supporting us. So we bought the whole ecosystem in terms of finance, the business, and then each of the ecosystem helping each other. And I think one of the things I also want to give a quick shout out to my dear colleague, Claude, who's been instrumental in helping us put together and orchestrating this plan. So with that, I just welcome you to Dubai. Enjoy the whole day of events with Horasis. And then if you guys have any other questions, and then let's keep in touch. You have my contact. We'll take it from there. Thank you very much, and welcome.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you so much. Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you. We will now start with the first plenary panel. I would like to ask you, Tala, to come to the stage and to welcome your panelists. Please.
They can sit down. Okay. Good morning and welcome to our plenary session on Asia's economic outlook. We're meeting at a very transformative moment where traditional trade routes are being redrawn and digital transformation is accelerating and regional economic alignments are shifting dramatically in the face of compounded geopolitical tensions in the region and beyond. So for today's panel, we have a panel of very distinguished guests here today. We have Nayef Alhajraf, the chairman of Capital Asset Management of Kuwait, Hulya Gedik, the chair of Gedik Holding in Turkey, Dimitri Avramopoulos, the former EU commissioner, and Baron Woolley of Woodward, the House of Lords in the United Kingdom. Thank you for joining us today. So for the opening statement, I guess let's start with a quick pulse check from each of you. With Asia's GDP growth projected at 4.6% this year, despite global headwinds, what's the most surprising trend you're seeing in your sector today? I'll start with you, Nayef.
Well, thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Frank, for bringing us to this, this panel, which is coming at the right time. So many things happening around our globe. But I would like to go with what Horasis is all about. It's the global visions community. And it is this kind of platform where we come from different parts of the world just to share our collective visions and how we need to move forward in order to make the world better for our children and grandchildren. When we are talking about what's going on today, I can see it's from an economic investments point of view. I will keep the geopolitics issues aside because I think there are so many people who can talk about it, but we'll focus on what really matters for the people. I mean, it's the connectivity. And just like Frank was mentioning, is building the bridge between different regions and different countries and different people to at least come up with a unified agenda that will do our part to make the world better for the future. When it comes to economy, if you look into the whole map, you will listen to all the world leaders enhancing the connectivity, enhancing the economic and the trade, and they would like to move forward. But this cannot be done alone. We need to accept others. We need to work with others. And we need to make sure that others are always there to have the picture completed. It can't be done in isolation. And from my previous experience, I will look into the GCC as one economy, one unit, and that's where we probably will work with the subcontinent of India as one unit, with China, with Southeast Asia, with untapped market in Africa, with the European Union as well, and beyond. And that's where we will eliminate as much differences as could be, but we will build on the common grounds and the common understanding of what is needed now and what are the requirements for the future.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Dimitri, up to you next.
It's on. Well, good morning, everybody. First of all, I would like to express my thanks to Horasis for inviting me here to share with distinguished panelists some thoughts on how can we move forward. Let me tell you from the very beginning that we live in deep uncertainty around the world. It's not only in the field of economy, but also in geopolitics. You see what's happening even in this neighborhood. And this has a direct impact on what we're going to discuss. So it's a very timely event, and thanks again for asking me to contribute in this discussion. Now, answering to your question, Tal, I believe that the most important point is the acceleration of digital connectivity. This is very important to know the priorities within the European Union, but also in the whole world. We are here in order to contribute in building bridges at a moment that the pillars of the existing the bridges are very, very weak. So I believe that we should focus on that, but at the same time, to start referring on what's happening in the world. To talk about the European Union. Is European Union what we knew before? Allow me to tell you from my own experience, because I was responsible for migration and security, things have changed. The European Union is not as powerful as before because internally of the rise of populist governments. Populism is leading back to the dark pages of our history, territorial claims. And upon that we have nationalism. But Europe was not made for that. The European project was based on a vision of the generation after the Second World War to create a more stable and peaceful world. It worked. It worked for 70 years. But now we are in front of very difficult moments. Regarding the other aspect of our meeting here, the relations between Asia and Europe. During the last decades, many efforts have taken place to bring Asia closer to Europe and bring Europe closer to Asia. A lot of things have been done, but more has to be done in the future, in all areas, in new technologies, in migration. Let me tell you that migration is not only a phenomenon of our times, it's something bigger. You know that right now we're here, more than 450 million people around the world are on the move. Going where? And the environment is not very hospitable. And this is fueling internally within our societies xenophobia, undermining all these big achievements. We have hundreds of thousands of Asians coming to Europe, but also from this part of the world. So the mindset has to be changed. This is the role of leadership. And unfortunately, a large part of the leaders of today are thinking differently, reverting to the past. We're going to discuss about it in the hours to come. Thank you again.
Definitely lots to discuss. All right, Hulya, what's the most surprising trend you've seen in your sector this year?
Okay, thank you very much for the question, and thank you, Horasis, and also Frank, for the second invitation to be a speaker here. I'm very delighted this morning to be with you. And for me, so the other panelists said about digital connectivity. So I'm coming from the manufacturing side in Turkey, so I can tell the green manufacturing. So this is became very popular, and in our country, it is low carbon manufacturing. There are many incentives to the companies, but on the other side, there's a very important issue for the resilience supply chain as well, because pandemic taught us a lot, and post-pandemic the countries would like to be self-sufficient, and they are pushing the investors to manufacture the goods in their own countries, and the countries would like to be independent. They don't want to have any dependency on other countries, and there are a lot of slogans going on now. It's in Turkey, it's make in Turkey, so it's like in India, make in India, such things. So it's very important for the countries to produce crucial items in their own countries. Mm-hmm. So in our manufacturing side, this is rather important.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. And Baron Woolley, what's your take on this?
Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me at the back? Thank you. I first want to pay tribute to my friend Frank, who heads Horasis, and I love his vision. I love his vision for a dynamic global community that can come together and talk about some of the biggest issues of the day. Now, to have Horasis at the Global Freight Summit. The Global Freight Summit, as Michael said, is about business, how business works best. I understand that, but business doesn't work in a vacuum. Business works in a global society. And I would say to you that for business to work well, that we must have a discussion. The moderator asked us, what is the temperature out there? And I would argue a key factor out there at the moment is the lack of moral leadership. And in the lack of moral leadership, as has been said, you can have actors out in the political space that are pitting poor white people against poor black people. You had a wonderful project in Europe that brought people together. But if you start dividing and ruling, then all of a sudden, our communities break apart. We've seen in Europe, we've seen in the UK, politicians standing up and saying, you're poor because of these black and brown people. You have no education because of these people. And of course, many people want simple answers to complex situations. I would argue what Frank is trying to do is to have a conversation with you about servant leadership. If you can have servant leadership in business, you do business the right way. You do business with integrity. You do business with honesty. Look, you are businessmen and women. I'm not going to tell you how to do business. Part of my role as a politician and as an educator is to implore you to have the moral leadership that brings people together, the moral leadership that speaks for the most vulnerable, that demands decency. You know, it's not we win, you lose. You do this right, you have these difficult discussions, I promise you this, we all win. I would argue in the next hour that we bring all these ideas together. So here today, we show the servant leadership. Thank you.
Thank you so much. A lot to unpack here, but I guess let's take it a step back and start with trade, which is, I guess, the core discussion here today, and then we'll dive into the geopolitics afterwards. All right, Hulya, I'll start with you. So Turkey sits at a very crucial intersection between Asia and Europe. The UAE is also a global hub positioned between the nexus between the East and West. How do you see these complementary positions creating new opportunities in trade, specifically for Asia-Europe trade diplomacy, connectivity, sorry?
Okay, thank you for the question. So Turkey is geographically very well situated, so between Europe and Asia. So Turkey is the end of Europe and the beginning of Asia, so which gives a very good position as far as the manufacturing hub is concerned. And in my country, there are world-class industrial zones, and where the European companies use Turkey as a gateway to UAE, via UAE to Asia-Pacific countries, as I guess everybody will agree that the manufacturing is shifting from Europe to Asia-Pacific countries, where the demand is higher, as well as the cost effectiveness of the goods which are manufactured in Asia-Pacific is far competitive than the ones in Europe. And UAE is a very well situated as far as the trading is concerned. There's a world-class ports and also free zones here in this country. And Turkey and UAE, because of the good relation for the moment and the agreements, so the two countries, they started to invest in their own countries, and Turkish companies started to invest in UAE, and vice versa. So also in our company, we invested here in UAE to be able to supply to Asia Pacific countries. And the manufacturing side, Turkey is very strong at, but the transport is crucial. It's not enough to manufacture the goods. It's also how you will transport it in a very competitive and cost-effective way. So that's why UAE is a good gateway, and so that's why the Turkish entrepreneurs and business people would like to have a footprint here in UAE to be able to reach to Asia Pacific countries.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you.
So Dr. Nayef, based in the Gulf region, I guess we can also say that it's not just the UAE that's based in a very strategic location for trade between Asia and Europe, it's also the GCC overall. So what's your response to that as well?
Well, as I said, I mean, we have to look into it blocks to blocks. So if we look into the GCC as one block, we will have, it is very strategically located between east and west, north and south. It's served in between the water corridors, either from the Gulf or the Red Sea, which combined, I mean, there is about 20% of the world energy passing through the Gulf on a daily basis. And there are about 37% of the world trade going through the Red Sea. And these combined represent a very crucial trade volume that need to be protected, need to maintain open for all the trade communities. Like Her Excellency from Turkey she manufactured in Turkey, but she needs the shipping facilities. And that's where we need to have this connectivity, which is very important. Plus that, I think the GCC countries have invested heavily in the infrastructure. So we have world-class ports, we have world-class free zones, we have the infrastructure is very well established, not only to serve our own economy, but to be the platform to serve the trade globally. And if we look into just 4 years ago, when COVID hit, we were all facing the supply chain disruptions. And I think everyone was trying to find a resilient way to keep things moving. This resilience is not only limited to a country per se, it's more of a global issues that need to be addressed and need to be maintained, because we cannot, as the global community, we cannot face any supply chain disruptions coming on the scale of COVID in 2020, 2021. So we have to learn, and we are learning from each other. Mm-hmm. So that's where the GCC now is positioning themselves to be the corridor. And we have seen the Indian-US GCC corridor, economic corridor, that will link India with the European continent. And this is to make sure that the flow of goods and services and energy will not be disrupted. And this is coming in the international community interest.
Mm-hmm. Well, on that subject as well, Dimitris, there was the Red Sea crisis that apparently, according to some reports, disrupted 40% of Asia-Europe trade. Do you have any comment on that? Oh, yeah.
Definitely. I have, first of all, let me tell you that Europe right now is navigating a very delicate balance between its own trade independence and, on the other side, on its needs. Coming to your point, definitely what's happening right now in the Red Sea is a big problem for Europe. Not only for the European economy, but also for the European consumers. Because of what is happening there, prices have gone up to 37%. And this is one of the main arguments of all those who are putting in doubt all these efforts for connectivity and international cooperation. They say this doesn't bring me a better life. Even in the United States, one of Mr. Trump's let's say, arguments was based on that. So, sea lines are blocked, if not disrupted. How can you overcome it? This is also a big political issue. And the world leadership has to do something in order to give an end to these conflicts in the region. But is the international community strong? Not anymore. United Nations is not as powerful as it was before. And as I said in the beginning, even the European Union is not as it was in the beginning. So we are in front of a deep crisis that is impacting directly economic relations, trade, and political relations. That's why I said to Frank the day he invited me to attend in this event, I said, from time to time we have this kind of events being organized, but what is the outcome? What is the message that we're going to send today? And to whom? The citizens are expecting more from their leaders at all levels, the economic leadership and the political leadership. So it is true to say once again that what we describe today is not only to try to explain the problem, but also to provide some ideas how can we move forward. At the end, I'd like also to say that the European economy, because of what happened in the past, is relying on China. I don't know whether you know that, but approximately 9% of the raw materials coming to Europe come from China. Now the crisis, the difficult and complicated relations between the United States and China is one of the factors that deteriorate the situation. Coming to the United States, we are all following what's happening there, and we don't know what will be the new beginning of Mr. Trump in January. But does he know? We don't know. So globally, we navigate in uncharted waters as far as global economy is concerned and geopolitics. So we have to think about it and start being more resourceful in finding ways out. Thank you.
Thank you, Dimitri. Baron Woolley, I didn't get to hear from you much. I was wondering if you could weigh in from your perspective as a politician in the UK. London has historically been the midpoint between Europe and Asia. Right. How has that changed in recent years?
I mean, I do think that we need to look at the connectivity of a global community. I mean, I sit in the House of Lords, and we've always been what people say is the decent guy in global politics. But I'm also an educator too. I sit here as the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Cambridge University. It's a global, as you know, a global university. So part of my role is to come to places like Dubai and other places around the world to say that Cambridge University cannot be its best without you, without the team in diversity that brings a different perspective, different cultures that makes the whole greater than the sum of its parts. Yesterday I had a meeting with the head of economy and tourism here, and I was immensely encouraged, let me say, not least because Hadi Badri, the CEO there, showed me a picture showed me a picture of Dubai from the 1940s. 1940s. And he showed me a global picture, and it pretty much looked like this. It was a rock and no electricity. There was nothing there. And then he said to me, now have a look at this picture. And it was Dubai, what you see today, with that fantastic skyline. Now, the reason why I was encouraged by that is because I often tell my students, when setting up a project, setting up an idea, start off with a blank sheet and use your ingenuity, use your creativity to fill in the blanks, to be innovative, to be creative, to bring people in. So I'm encouraged about what you can do with nothing. But I say at every juncture, I love the creativity, I love the dynamism, but you must have the values. You must have the ethics that go with it. You know, many of us here, you've heard us talking, is that we are global in our outlook. We are interconnectors. We are facilitators. Turkey knows that it can't do business without the straits, without the freight, without the materials, it has the people, it has the creativity. Our job, our central job, is to sew a golden thread, with all the energy, with all the creativity, and we can be a little bit more positive then.
Mm-hmm, definitely. That's a lovely message. Thank you. All right, back to geopolitics. Dimitri, as former EU commissioner, I'm sure you've seen a lot of shifts in global alignments at the moment. How is Europe balancing its strategy for Asia connectivity, against this geopolitical backdrop? And if you'd like to weigh in on US-China tensions as well.
As I said before, the whole world is confused. Everybody would expect Europe to be one of the driving forces to create a better world. Don't forget that in the aftermath of the Second World War, wise people, they sat around the table and they decided to create a new Europe. This European project was based on two principles: solidarity and responsibility. Believe me, I have experienced it myself as a European Commissioner for Migration and Security. These principles are vanishing.
Right.
I say that because it is directly referred to what should happen in the world. And as it was said before, it started from two crises: the economic crisis and migration. Even Brexit happened.
Please don't blame me.
Because of migration.
This is my next question, actually, for you.
All these populists used this argument, and they convinced the people. I don't want you to make any comment on that, but British have regretted the fact that they left Europe. And it will take at least one generation,
or more,
maybe more, in order to come back that. So, by either neglecting or undermining this principle, Europe cannot work in order to be a global stakeholder, both in economy and geopolitics. The vision remains, but some of the leaders today seems that they have forgotten. In this room, all of us, we are the privileged generation of mankind's history. We have never lived a war, and we take it for granted. It is not sure. You see what's happening in this neighborhood and in other parts of the world, in Central Europe. So we risk to revert to the past. And this will harm directly all these visions in order to see on a more united and inclusive world.
Dimitri, if I may come in on that point, think about Brexit and think about the drivers of Brexit. There was a number of politicians who really wanted to hark back to the days of the empire. They did. When Britain could say that it ruled the waves, that the sun never set on the empire of Britain. And so we hark back to a horrible past to find ourselves in no man's land. Because having left the European Union with a business community of 500 million, we now find ourselves not in Europe and potentially at the behest of the United States that will see us as a little poodle. So making those global links and having partnerships doesn't just make good business sense. Actually, it makes good political sense too. But the lesson is for all of us is that if you lean into populism, if you lean into divide and rule, you will end up in no man's land, because you will not have the global community to do business, to do culture, to do community.
Absolutely.
It is a very good point. Can I go on?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because the discussion becomes more animated.
Yes.
When you have
Still a lot more to get through.
When you have a professor and a politician or diplomat discussing, we never stop. But at the end, we leave something behind for all of you to think about our life today and where do we want the world to move forward. Let me tell you something that might surprise you. Mythology is more sincere than history. And I'll tell you why. You all know the myth of Sisyphus, someone condemned by gods to carry a heavy rock on his shoulders to the top of a hill. And when he was arriving there, the rock was rolling down again. It reminds me what's happening now. There are 4 generations after the Second World War, you said before. The first generation had drawn lessons. They said, we are not going to leave this situation again. And they decided to create the most admirable project of history, the European Union, I said before. The second generation continued on its path. The third generation had a fantastic life in the 90s, and the fourth generation has forgotten what has happened. So it is not history that repeats itself. Men repeat history very simply because they don't read it. That's why I said before, the myth of Sisyphus is sending us messages. Today, the whole world is in deep, I would say, disarray without feeling it. Social movements, political movements. And Europe is the theater where all these things are happening. We gave some good examples before. But this might impact, have a domino effect for the rest of the world. You see what's happening in other parts of the planet. But at the same time, there is another achievement. They were calling it globalization. I call it globality. It's a reality right now. You see how people around the world exchange ways of thinking, ways of living. But this is not accepted as a reality by some of the leaders of the world. I fully agree with you. Populism is the big threat of our times. It will impact trade, communication, cultural context all around the world. But how can we stop it? I'm not pessimistic in my life, but this time I'm a bit pessimistic. Because of what I said before. Only a drama can stop this evolution. Let's hope that it will not happen. Because if the unthinkable happens, then Einstein will be justified when he predicted how the Fourth World War will take place. This is the reality. We have to be more responsible at all levels, from local governments to global governments, to give power again to multilateral diplomacy. And within this new context, to start building better and more trustful relations between the citizens of the world. Next week, I will be in Portugal for one more important meeting of the Alliance of Civilizations. Everything has its roots there. And EUAE has shown us the way. It has become a hub of where people can talk to each other without prejudices, with common goals. I want to refer also to your role as a bloc. We are a bloc in Europe, you're a bloc here. We have to start talking to each other in a more sincere way. You know that I was about to be the liaison person between GCC and the Emirates in general, the Gulf countries. Believe me, I had studied this issue. So if we are here today, it's not only to share your hospitality, to enjoy your hospitality, but also to foster some ideas of how can we move forward, fostering connectivity, trustful relations, and having the same approach in historical terms. Thank you.
Definitely, thank you. Mishal Kanu, the chairman of the Kanu Group in the UAE, thank you for joining us today, just in time for the next part of our discussion. We'll be discussing digital transformation, so just in time. Lovely to have you here on the panel with us today.
Thank you, and sorry for the delay.
It's all right. Okay, so we can't talk about all of these issues, I guess. I mean, we could talk about progress now, right? We've seen on the social end, the world is going through a lot, but technologically, we're seeing a lot of advancement, especially in artificial intelligence, and that's, of course, no doubt going to impact supply chains and trade overall. So I'll start with you, Nayef. What's your opinion on that? How are you already seeing AI change things in your industry and impact trade as well?
Well, with the AI, well, I just want to emphasize that we need to be very optimistic in a very responsible way. So I've heard, especially from Lord Simons, ethics, values, decencies, and moral leaders. All these are applicable when it comes to AI. AI is changing everything we are doing. AI will change the way of living. AI will come to our values and shared ethics, because we will be relying in no time on everything that's machine generated. Whether it's right or wrong, we will, especially with the younger generation, we will have more confidence that whatever coming out of that machine is the de facto.
Right.
So we will reach a point where we won't be able to question the integrity of this information or whatever the AI is producing. So that's where we need. Well, it's very interesting. When it comes to nuclear, we do have the international autonomy in a global arena, where the Security Council is regulating the nuclear activities. How many countries have the nuclear capability? Well, and contracts, how many people will be exposed to AI? Every one of us. Yet, there is no framework or regulations or a set of unified, globally accepted regulation that will govern the AI. So we are jumping in uncharted path.
Correct.
No one knows what will happen or to what scales, but definitely I personally believe that it will change everything from now onward. Whatever happened during the 90s with the dot-com revolutions, this will be minimal to what the AI will change our life.
Absolutely, we're already beginning to see that. Now, Mishal, I know the Kanu Group has been at this for generations, but how different is it to, run a logistics operation today, in your opinion, with AI in logistics, in Gulf logistics alone?
Assalamu alaikum. Before I start on this point, if you don't mind.
Of course, yeah.
I'd like to. I don't want to sound aggressive, but I would like to counter Nayef's argument. I actually believe, sadly, there's a race to the bottom in AI, and no legislation is going to stop it. And we've seen this with the internet. Do you know what's the biggest what are the biggest sites on the internet that drives this technology? The two businesses, pornography and gambling. And if AI is going to go and sift through everything that's available on the internet, private and or public, it's going to go for the worst and worst and worst. This is our tendency as humans. I'd love to be on side with Nayef, what Nayef is saying, that there is an organization and we're going to be careful and honest. And I would love to say that. I don't see it. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I just wanted to put that little caveat out there. Mm-hmm. On the issue of, glad somebody agrees with me. On the issue of how companies are dealing with it, whether it's my company or other companies. In this part of the world, to a certain degree, we are somewhat protected in our mindsets, and that we think that this is not going to come to us. It is going to come to us. It's going to come to us in a tidal wave. But we're not prepared for it. Not a lot of companies are prepared for it. So most of the AI that you come across here are somebody selling you an idea. Oh, you need to have a chatbot, or you need to have... No, that's not. That's the last of the issues you want to consider. AI should be looking at what the Chinese are doing, and they're doing really well, is efficiency in commercialization of things. That's what AI should be used to. There's a focus in the West of generative AI. That's something you focus on later. Right now, to be able to utilize AI is to decrease your cost, increase your revenue, increase your spread. Those are the things that AI should be utilizing. Right now, there are very, very few companies in this whole region, very few, who are utilizing this to its proper extent. Most of them are using it as lip service, saying, oh, look, I have it.
That's the new buzzword, isn't it?
But whether it's effective, active, beneficial, I don't know. We will see. How we're going to work and live with this is, for the next few years, we'll start to show. I don't want to be a bearer of bad news, but me personally, I am absolutely frightened of AI. Not because of what it is right now. It's nascent. It's just starting. And I'll give you a small example of what I'm talking about. In 2002, if you went to DALL-E, DALL-O, or E,
the image generating,
which by OpenAI, and you put in a prompt, penguin with a king's hat, or something, you would have gotten a very rudimentary child's drawing. Today, 4 years later, same prompt, you'll have much more clarity, much more advanced, and it's just 4 years. Now, if you add quantum computing, which will be coming into the future, you add a hell of a lot more people into coding of the AI, and perhaps AI itself coding itself, 4 years or 10 years, I don't know what's going to come out there. So again, it's a very sensitive subject. It's a frightening subject. I'd like to hope that we can control it. Mm-hmm.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so. Thank you. Simon, I see you nodding along. I feel like you want to say something to that as well.
It is. I mean, I want to hear from my Turkish friend in a moment too. But I guess in essence with AI, you have to think about it like this. Baggage in, baggage out. And I would also like to be optimistic. And there are elements that are, particularly for education, are so fantastic. I mean, I was brought up in a poor neighborhood with bad schools. And my grammar is shocking. I mean, it's getting better. But I just put it in AI and I say, grammar check my work, and within 10 seconds, bang, I'm like a scholar. So there are wonderful, wonderful elements. But if the baggage in is so Eurocentric, anti-immigrant, anti-black and brown, when we ask it questions, a generation of young people are going to be poisoned by machines. There's another aspect too to AI that is deeply troubling in terms of the medical space. I went to the hospital for a check on my heart, and they wired me up with those little prods. And there was a young nurse looking at me, then looking at the screen like this. I said to her, what's the matter? She said, Simon, you're having a heart attack. I thought to myself, I don't think I'm having a heart attack, but I will in a minute. the machine looking at the data was for white men and not from somebody from a Caribbean heritage. They called an ambulance to take me to A&E. We laugh, but the misdiagnosis can cause terrible problems. We need all your money, big money, to be able to get into these machines, to test the machines for their bias. For their bias, their Eurocentric worldview. If as the quantum physics, the quantum computing gets faster and faster and faster, if we don't intervene now, oh my gosh, we're in trouble. So, in conclusion, there is, let me say, wonderful opportunity, unprecedented. The downside, if we don't check it, is terrifying.
Mm-hmm. It's a data problem, I think, but anyway,
it's
that's a whole other conversation.
No, it's not a data problem. It's a people problem. It's us problem. It's what we do is the problem.
All right, thank you. Hulya, we haven't heard from you in a while. I wonder if you have any opinions on how AI is transforming industries and our lives as well, and the future.
Okay, I mean, in this panel, I understand that I'm among the politicians. So the voice of politicians is always louder than the manufacturers. So that's why whatever they say, I have to listen to them. But you know, as being the manufacturer, we are the dynamo of the countries, and so this is very essential. Of course, AI is now in the business life, and there is no escape from it. It's inevitable that we have to accept it and implement it in our manufacturing side, in our production machines. We use AI deeply, and it's good that it gives us easiness in manufacturing to measure the productivity of the machines as well as for the operators. So it's you said you are frightened. I said it's a kind of a luck, because then the time is now more effective when AI is in our life in business, and also we can check and control through AI all the processes in a shorter time. But if I come back to the trade, that I would like to say something more about the China. Of course, the dominance of China in manufacturing is frightening also for the countries when we go to the West, because the dominance of Chinese products is likely to kill the manufacturers of the other part of the world, because of their quality is getting higher, and also their connectivity with the other countries is getting more than before, and that's why Turkey is playing a great role between Europe and China and European countries is finding an alternative supply chain in Turkey rather than buying from China. It's a kind of a advantage for us. But on the other side, Chinese people started to invest in our country. So the last comer from China is BYD automotive company, and they invested around $1 billion, which is good on the other side, but for our country. But then the disadvantage part that they will use Turkey as a foot step to European countries, and but we are talking about globalization or localization. So I'm in favor of localization more than globalization, because I believe that the countries should source all the goods in their own lands, not to dependent to the other countries. So that's why, as far as the manufacturing is concerned in our country, we are very strong, and we are welcoming the foreign investors from UAE, from Qatar, from other GCC countries. And Turkey is a rising star in between Europe and Asia as well.
Absolutely. Dimitri, I feel like you'll have an opinion on this in the debate of localization versus globalization.
Well, I would like to start from what our friend from Bahrain, Mr. Michel, said in the beginning.
Sure.
I share his thoughts. I believe that AI will be the issue for the decade to come. How to control it? Because we have been undertaken by our achievements. We are running behind AI. It has substituted our knowledge, our minds, and our life on our scale. I'll give you an example of what I have experienced myself. Being responsible for counterterrorism in Europe, I had visited Silicon Valley only 5 years ago. AI was not at that time what it is today. And I approached my interlocutors and the big platforms there in order to establish a cooperation in order to remove terrorist content online. The same later on for trafficking and pornography. When I went back to Brussels, they told me now it's the moment to pass legislation. No way. You cannot put control on these companies. Now with AI, it's even worse. We shall be manipulated if we do not do something. But how can you do something when, as I said before, they are thinking better than we do? It's not only that they are substituted to our minds, but also they make decisions. Young people have started writing their thesis in 2 seconds. Is it true? It has nothing to do with our generation. So if mankind stops thinking, we shall not be creative. And we shall be run in the future by a new type of dictatorship. Our minds will be manipulated. And if this great technological achievement is in the hands of evil, we don't know where the world is moving towards. Why do you say that?
Sorry to cut you off. Wasn't there a regulation? I think it was one of the world's first, most comprehensive ones that came out of the EU this summer.
Yes,
I don't know if it's been enforced yet, but
no.
No?
And it will not be enforced.
Why is that?
Coming back to the European Union,
Okay.
the European Parliament, I was not an MEP, I was commissioner, but I was following the works of the European Parliament. They are good, very good in talking a lot, but not in doing. The procedures within the European Union is different compared to other countries. The Commission is proposing, the European Parliament is discussing, and the Council on the top is deciding. What's the Council? It is the main instrument where the real power in the European Union is. When I arrived in Brussels, I thought that there would be, this is the analogy, a minister of the European government. And then I realized that the real power is in the hands of the leaders. But the leaders at the top, they are not very much united, especially now with the rise of populist governments. How can they talk to each other? What is the position of Mr. Orban on migration, for instance? What's the position of Mr. another leader? And this is a big problem for the future. Coming back to AI. Personally, I'm very much concerned. I have children, as you all have here, and I don't know in what kind of world they will live. We shall not be there at the time, but I'm afraid it will not be a better world. In the field of economy, it can work if it is well used, but it cannot be used as long as we are used by it.
Thank you, Dimitri. Mishal, I'm wondering what your response to that in general. What do you agree?
There's no response because it's what
It's almost exactly
Mr. Dimitri
what-
said is something that resonates with me.
Yeah.
There's a harder part of this AI part, which we don't want to discuss. We try not to discuss, and although I'm talking in the future, when in the future is a question, not if, but rather when. And the issue is that's being discussed in philosophical spheres, maybe not in the IT sphere so much, but in the IT spheres, this point I'm about to talk about is talked about as a bright light. In the philosophical spheres, it's actually talked as quite negative, which is the issue of singularity, i.e., when computers can match that of human mind and can produce more. Just taking this further, I'm 55 years old. I'm really happy I'm this age because by the time this thing kicks in, I'm dead, so I don't have to worry about this thing. My kids have a problem, it's not mine. But how are these things going to come into being? Where everyone is trying right now to be, we're creating faster chips. Now everyone's trying to create faster chips. We want better computers. We want better connectivity. We want all of the things that have to do with productivity. Great. But what, again, as I said, because we've done it in the past, and we'll do it again, we are creatures of comfort. We will repeat whatever we're comfortable with. And that's a race to the bottom. Again, everything we've done ends up starting off with as a good idea. Industrialization is a great idea. Rotation of the crops, fantastic idea. The internet, brilliant idea. And you can see the result eventually as it goes down. How are we going to do this? Again, it's a philosophical question. Are people sitting and discussing this? I don't see too many. I could be wrong, but I don't see too many. And then those who are discussing it, as Mr. Dimitri said, they're discussing it here. But the action is down here. And nobody down here cares about what people are thinking up here. So if you have this disconnect, when it does kick in, it might be too late. We finally come up with a legislation that stops everything. Yeah, too late. I don't know how we think along these lines as humans, but again, we focus and we're quite good at micro, but it's the macro that we need to look at. The interconnectivity. Sorry, I'm going to switch a bit in terms of understanding micro to macro. When you had the pre-COVID, everyone was talking about globalization. That was the buzzword. I wanted the cheapest thing from the most productive place. I don't care where it was. You did it over there. I get it over here. We benefit. Everyone benefits. You benefit. I benefit. Okay, that's the mindset. And then COVID came, and everyone said, "Oh, I don't have a manufacturing base. I need that thing to make my economy work. Oh, and the other party is using that against me. So I need to cut that off and focus more on my part of the world." It's just that. You need a little catalyst to cause people to change. Sometimes that catalyst might be too late. Now we're talking about, we don't, no one wants globalization anymore. We want we want localization. We want everything within this certain area. But in terms of productivity, if productivity is the goal, I'm never going to be the best at everything. There are parts of the world that are going to be better than I am, and if I don't connect with them, I'm not going to get the best. Or I can say, you know what, I'm going to be very protective. I don't care about the best. I just care about producing something, whatever that something is, irrespective of how good it or bad it is, but at least I'm producing it and I control it. So what's more important? Productivity, low cost, or protection? this is the same concept, not the idea, but the same concept that we will have to, at one point, think about when it comes to AI. Because certain countries are going to be head and shoulders, I mean, when I say head and shoulders, I mean head and shoulders above others. And I just came back from China, and not to frighten people, but I've never seen, in my life, I've never seen a company go from zero to producing a car in 18 months. Mm-hmm. This is something else. And you're talking about here.
Mm-hmm.
Can I add just
Sure, we're almost running out of time. We have 38 seconds left.
Yeah,
no, go for it.
2 seconds.
Okay, sure.
First of all, Michelle, you will be there in 50 years because according to biotechnology, you will reach 105. I mean, this is the gift to our generation. Regarding China, I'll tell you one thing.
You know, the problem is, though,
Mr. Musk was appointed by Mr. Trump for a very specific reason, to lead the war, the technological war against China. This might lead to another level of antagonism.
You know, the problem is that we spent the last 20 minutes talking about the problem and not the solution.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And it is a real shame. I mean, we know the problem is enormous, but a few minutes on the solution, at least. I would argue, and I remain optimistic, in having conversations with young people about their opportunities, but also their responsibilities. And the responsibility is to say that I want you to be morally, ethically right. This is what it means for you to have this AI. Yes, you can write an essay in 10 seconds, but is it your essay? Does it belong to your mind? So we have to be optimistic. We have to say to young people, everything you do must be predicated on your values. And in that way, by challenging AI at its root, at its core, we can be more hopeful than thinking we're all done.
Thank you, Simon. Sorry, our time is up, but thank you so much for your time, and thank you all for this very insightful discussion, and thank you for listening.
Too much optimism for the future.